E-Biology class presented by Fatima Convent High School, Class 9, Chapter 6, Tissue. Let us begin with animal tissue in this session. We are very much familiar with the term tissue. Tissue is the group of cell having specific function and specific structure. We understood plant tissue. Now let us move on towards animal tissue. Now, animal tissue, when we breathe, we are actually feeling the movement of our chest. How do these body parts move? For this, we have specialized cell called muscle cells. The contraction and relaxation of these cells result in the movement. So, you can see the stomach. This is the inner lining of the stomach and the outer lining or the muscle fibers. You can see the location of muscle fibers in any of the organs. Now, during breathing, we inhale oxygen. Where does this oxygen go? It is absorbed in the lungs and then it transported to all body cells through blood. Why could cell need oxygen? The function of mitochondria we studied earlier provide a clue to this question. Blood flows and carries various substances from one part of the body to another. For example, it carries oxygen and food to all the cells. It also collects waste from all parts of the body and carries them to the liver and kidney for disposal. So we can know the function of mitochondria. We know the function of blood in the body. We know the function of muscle cells. So these blood and muscles are both examples of tissues found in our body. On the basis of the function they perform, we can think of different types of animal tissues. So the various kinds of animal tissue are epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. The blood is a type of connective tissue and muscle forms muscular tissue. Now let us study them in detail. The epithelial tissue are the tissues which make the outer protective cover of any body organ or the animal body. And these are divided into first is epithelial tissue, which forms the protective layer over various organs inside the body and outside the body. And according to their structure and function, they are divided into squamous epithelium, which is stratified squamous epithelial. Then you have Columinar. Then we have Ciliated. Then we have Cuboidal. Then we have glandular. Now let us study the function of these. Now the squamous epithelial are cells of squamous epithelial are extremely thin and flat and they are protective in nature and form the external covering of the body, that is our skin. So what can we say? They are extremely thin and flat and protects the body by forming a protective layer on the external body parts. Then cuboidal epithelium. These epithelium cells are like a shape or columinar. Columinar, they are tall like columns. They are column-like or pillar-like. And they carry out absorption. Their function is to absorb various components in the body. And they are seen in the alimentary canal. Then we have next is ciliated. The tall columinar epithelium, whenever are provided with cilia, if they have the columinar tissues, if they have cilia, they are hair-like structures which increase the surface area for absorption and produce current. They are seen in respiratory passages. Then we have the cuboidal. They are epithelial cells which are in shape of cube and they line the delicate uriniferous tubules. These are the different body parts in kidneys. And they provide mechanical support. Then we have glandular, form the secretory glands. And are present in the glands. Then you have the stratified epithelium. Stratified squamous epithelium. They are multi-layered covering on the skin. Multi-layered covering present on the skin. So, You can see the various figures of the various epithelium tissue. The squamous. Then we have the stratified squamous, which is multilayered, cuboidal, and columinar ciliated. These are the different epithelial tissues. So, the covering or the protective tissue in the animal body are epithelial tissues. Epithelium covers the organs and cavity within the body. It also forms a barrier to keep different body parts or body systems separate. The skin, the lining of the mouth, the lining of the blood vessels, lungs, alveoli, and kidney tubules are made up of epithelium tissues. The epithelium tissue cells are tightly packed and form a continuous sheet. These are the characteristics of epithelial tissue. They have only small amount of cementing material between them and almost no intercellular spaces. Obviously, anything entering or leaving the body must cross at least one layer of epithelium. As a result, the permeability of the cells of the epithelium plays an important role in regulating the exchange of material between body and external environment and also between different parts of the body. Regardless of the type, all epithelium tissues separate from underlying tissues by extracellular fibrous basement membrane. The different epithelium tissues show differing functions that correlate with their unique functions. For example, in cell lining blood vessels or lung alveoli, where transportation of substance occurs through a selective permeable membrane, there is a simple flat kind of epithelium and it is called as simple squamous epithelium. Squamous means scales or layers of skin, and simple squamous epithelium are extremely thin and flat and form a delicate lining. We already saw the function. The esophagus and the lining of mouth are also covered with squamous epithelium. The skin which protects the body is made up of squamous epithelium. Skin epithelium cells are arranged in many layers to prevent wear and tear. Since they are arranged in patterns of layers, these epithelium are called as stratified epithelium, which you can see in the figure. So there are the two types of epithelium, the simple squamous and the stratified squamous. The simple squamous is single layered and very thin and flat cells so that the permeability increases and the exchange of material can take easily, whereas the skin or stratified squamous epithelium has many layers so that it is protected from the external environment and the unwanted thing do not enter the body easily. Where absorption and secretion occurs as the inner lining of the intestine, tall epithelium cells are present, which are called as columinar or pillar-like. This increases the surface area and epithelium facilitates movement across the epithelial barrier. In the respiratory tract, the columinar epithelial tissue also has cilia, which are hair-like projections on the outer surface of epithelial cells. These cilia can move and their movement pushes the mucus forward to clear it. This type of epithelium is called ciliated columinar epithelium. We already saw the function of it. And we have the cuboidal epithelium with cube-shaped cells forms the lining of kidney, tubes and ducts of salivary glands, where it provides mechanical support. Epithelial cells often occur additional specialization as gland cells, which can secrete substances of epithelial substance. Sometimes a portion of epithelial tissue folds inwards and multicellular glands is formed. These are glandular epithelium. So, you are very much clear with these epithelial tissues now. These are the structure and function of various epithelial tissues. Now, let us study the connective tissue, that is the second type of animal tissue. Now, the connective tissues are of two types. They are fluid connective tissue and skeletal tissue. Now, what are this fluid connective tissue? They are the blood and the lymph. So, the second type of the animal tissue is the connective tissue. Now, these connective tissues are again of two types: fluid, which is further classified as blood, and lymph. And the other one is the skeletal, which has bone, cartilage, ligaments, and tendons. Now let us see the function of each of it. We know that the connective tissue, blood, very clearly. Now blood is a type of fluid connective tissue. Why would we call it connective tissue? A clue is provided in the introduction of this chapter. A clue is provided in the introduction of this chapter. Now let us look at this type of tissue in some more detail. The cells of connective tissues are loosely spaced and embedded in an intercellular matrix. This matrix may be jelly-like, fluid, dense or rigid. The nature of matrix differs in concordance with the function of this particular connective tissue. So, because it has a jelly-like fluid in between the main cells, it is called as fluid connective tissue. And we know the function of blood, that is for transportation. Now let us take a drop of blood on the slide and try to observe under the microscope. What will you see in the blood composition? You will see these type of cells in the blood. You can see the lymphocytes, monocytes, platelets, basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils or polynuclear leukocytes. They are white blood cells. Then we have the red blood cells and the various forms of the blood cells. So, they are the types of blood cells. The next diagram is compact bone, hyaline cartilage, areolar tissue and adipose tissue. Now let us study the blood tissue. Blood has a fluid liquid matrix called plasma, in which the red blood corpuscles, the white blood corpuscles and the platelets are suspended. The plasma contains proteins, salts and hormones. That is a function of plasma. Blood flows and transports gases, digested food, hormones and waste material to different parts of the body. So we can say that the function of the blood. We already know the function of the red blood cells is to transport oxygen. The white blood cells are called the soldiers of the body, which protect our body from external attack of microorganisms. and increases our immune system. And platelets help in clotting of the blood so that the flow of blood can be stopped. These are the functions of various components of blood. Lymph is another liquid which is secreted in the lymphatic system, about which you will study in higher classes. Next we have the bone, that is the skeletal tissue. So the bone and the cartilage are made up of cells which are embedded in a special matrix. Therefore they are called as connective tissues. It forms a framework that supports the body. It also anchors the muscles and supports the main organ of the body. It is a strong and non-flexible tissue. We know that if we bend a bone at certain zone, it breaks. So they are non-flexible. Now so this is an advantage because it gives shape to our body. Otherwise our body will look like a lump of a sack or a bag. Bone cells are embedded in a hard matrix that is composed of calcium and phosphorus compounds. Now these two bones are connected to each other by a type of connective tissue called ligament. So another connective tissue is ligament, bone and then the ligament. Function of bone is to give shape and structure to our body, and ligament connects the two bones. This tissue is very elastic and is considerably strength. Ligaments contain very little matrix and connects bones with the bones. Now next is tendons. Tendons connect muscles to the bones and another type of connective tissue. Tendons are fibrous tissues and with great strength but little flexibility. So you can understand the characteristics of different skeletal tissue. Another type of connective tissue is cartilage, which are widely spaced cells. The solid matrix is composed of proteins and sugar. Cartilage can also be called as softened bones, surfaces at joints, and is also present in ears, nose, trachea and larynx. We can fold the cartilage of the ear, but we cannot bend the bone. So cartilage are soft bones. Think of how the two tissues are different. Then we have the areolar connective tissue is found between the skin and muscles, around blood vessels and the nerves and in the bone marrow. It fills the space inside the organs, support internal organs and help in repair of tissues. So that is areolar connective tissue. You can easily list the various types of tissues and their function in the form of a chart. It fills the space inside the organs and supports internal organs and help in repair of tissues. Where are the fats stored in the body? Yes, they are stored in the adipose tissue. So another tissue is adipose. Is found below the skin and between the internal organs, and the cells of these tissues are filled with fat globules. Storage of fat also lets it act as an insulator. So the various tissues in the connective tissues are blood and lymph. Lymph you will study in the higher classes. Then we have the bone, that is the skeletal tissue. These are fluid connective tissues. And these are skeletal tissues. They are bones, then ligaments, tendons and cartilage. Then we have the areolar and the adipose tissue. Their function is to repair and wear and tear and store fat globules. Is this very much clear to you? In next section, we will be studying about muscular tissue. Thank you.